My job is all about purpose.
Just the ability to make a difference, to help someone be able to go home at the end of the day.
My great-grandfather started the volunteer fire department in Springfield, Nebraska. My grandmother was a nurse. My uncle was a fire chief in Atlanta, Georgia. So somewhere down the line, it was my purpose to be doing this.
Yeah, we're a family here.
The data we get from Rapid SOS is life-saving.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
That's a piece that I talk about a lot because that goes to, when someone's drowning, that's the best analogy. So when you are looking at someone and you're like, oh my gosh, what does someone drowning look like? And it's not someone who's saying, hi, I'm drowning. Can you save me? They're not talking. They're not asking for help. And that's that mirrors what people who are suicidal, their behaviors, their actions, they're literally drowning, except in water. It's just life. They're drowning in life and they can't reach out for help, and it's not going to be noticeable.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 664 of Within the Trenches, True Stories from the 911 Dispatchers Who Live Them. This episode is sponsored by Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading public safety company in AI, and a shout out to subscribers, as always. Thank you all very, very much, but especially all of you who are watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. This episode is going to be is actually going to feature a dispatchers roundtable, round 46, from just a few weeks ago. I wanted to make sure to add this as an episode before it gets too far, because it's an important conversation, and it's about Zerio Suicide Kits that my good friend Dawn Shumway is the creator of, and you'll learn more and more about it. About a month ago, we had the public safety showcase in the Trenches community, which each one of those sessions revolved around dispatch suicide. So I wanted to, again, add this round in there because it's a continuation of a session that Dawn did on there. And it's an excellent spot for you to learn so much more, learn about what she does, why she does it, and the importance of us continuing to have these conversations, especially so that people don't feel alone, that they know that there is help out there. So without further ado, here is episode 664 of Within the Trenches podcast. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. It is June 23rd, 2026, and we are live for the Dispatchers Roundtable. This round 46, is sponsored by Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading public safety company in AI. And thank you all for being here with us. It has been a little while since we've done a DRT, and we're jumping right back in. So we last week had the public safety showcase, and I'm here with my good friend Dawn Shumway. How's it going?
Good.
I noticed, I will say really quick, I noticed that while the countdown was going, you were destroying that Dr. Pepper
Oh yeah.
Polar Pop.
Stop.
It was like, what, 48 ounces of...
Oh, this one's just 32.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here. And for anybody who's watching, listening, please make sure to throw in some reactions. Share this. If you have any questions at all, throw them in the comments. But again, it is awesome to be here with all of you again for the Dispatchers Roundtable. And as I was saying, last week we had the Public Safety Showcase. So for the Public Safety Showcase, that is a mini version of like Dare to Be Great. And it's a virtual event that I hold every month. I was doing it every other month, but what we're going to be doing is we already had ours for June, and we're going to be doing them once a month all the way up to 2027. Last week, we had the main topic of dispatcher suicide that we were going through, and we had 3 sessions. 2 of the sessions in the beginning were panels, so a lot of different discussion that was going on. It was excellent to do so. And then Dawn was doing a session. She did a session called Stopping the Bleed Within, Suicide Prevention for 911. And Dawn, if you could, for our audience that's watching, just give a little overview, background on your background in public safety, but also an overview of what that session was about, because this is going to be a continuation of that, and we're going to dig a little deeper in here. So please.
Yeah. So background about me. So I've been in 911 22 years. So I applied, when I was 18, got the job, loved it since. Really love helping people. I still help them take calls, jump on the floor. We had a massive storm recently and helped with that. But anyway, so that's a lot of 911 calls over the years. Other things about me, I am the president for APCO and NINA for Idaho, and I help do contract speaking and within public safety. So you'll see me around, whether it's with different things. I have some stuff coming up with the virtual academy. I'll be in Tennessee, so in November, if you guys want to see me there. I'll also be in Alabama next month. You can also catch me there. So a few things as far as that way. It just means I really enjoy training and helping support people and just providing the things that I needed, especially and still need, throughout our careers and different stuff like that. And just also in life. And then with the last session, stopping the bleed within, it was really important, and just about what is suicide prevention? What does it look like? And then have you suicide proofed things at your home and different stuff like that. So we talk, so there's different things. You're going to have to watch it. And I talk about like my own story. And so, for time, obviously, for those who don't know, I had tragically lost my mother and sister to domestic violence at the hands of my father. And that led to a near suicide attempt for me. And so, I mean, like, I literally get it. Like, I know what it's like. And so I don't speak, I would go to those classes where it's like, drink more water, like, like it was like, be healthier, exercise, sleep. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but it was like, okay, but like, I'm drowning. Like, this isn't realistic. It's like someone who's drowning. If you could just swim more and perhaps wear a life jacket, and you're like, it's too late. Like, I'm in this. And so anyways, just really realistic tips that you can employ. And then also just conversation things. So I'm so excited for this part because we can actually like talk more, continuation of those things, and dive in deeper about what that means. And I'm really glad that for those who are watching, because this is a conversation to be had. So
I think that one of the things that we start with is kind of the way we started one of the sessions prior to yours, which was the hard truth, of identifying also struggling and what struggling actually looks like. Because you friends of mine, one of which, Dana, I'd had an episode with her, and she goes, struggling looked like me. I was
Yep.
happy. I was smiling. I was making cookies and bringing them to my coworkers. But you know, as we go through this as well, um, that stigma that's there, what's really is going on. What does the struggling look like? Is this sometimes like silence, or when we joke about a lot of different things? Like there was a mention, I think, in your session where you were engaging with those in the comments, the audience, we were talking about, and this was just talk. This wasn't anything for real, but we were just talking about the thought process of like throat punching someone, right?
Yes. Yeah, yes.
that that why is it easier to think about, you know, jokingly throat punching someone instead of saying, "Hey, I'm struggling."
Yeah.
Hey, are you struggling? Like, where do we go from there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so we talked about like normalizing some of those things. So like you're not alone if you have suicidal ideations. Just like everyone was like, oh yeah, I totally pictured throat punching to someone. And so just normalizing that, like, hey, having this thought, it doesn't make you a bad person. Just like imagine throat punching someone, or doesn't make you a bad person. These are normal like feelings that you can have, and just kind of walking it through. And I really like when you're talking about what does struggling look like, because that's a piece that I talk about a lot, because that goes to, when someone's drowning. That's the best analogy. So when you are looking at someone and you're like, oh my gosh, like, what does someone drowning look like? And it's not someone who's saying, hi, I'm drowning, can you save me? They're not talking. They're not talking. They're not asking for help. And that's that mirrors what people who are suicidal, like, their behaviors, their actions. Like, they're literally drowning, except in water. It's just life. They're drowning in life, and they can't reach out for help, and it's not going to be noticeable. And instead of, like, there will be someone who's just what looks like swimming and just with everyone else, and all of a sudden they're there, and then they're not. And that's what it is with life. So when she said, I was smiling, I was this, they're just going along with life just like everyone else until they're not there. And so we just really got to be careful of that. That's why I'm excited. We're going to talk today about, like, how can you be that lifeguard?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things?
So opening it up here, thinking about some of this, when let's say, you notice that someone is struggling, they're a little bit off, or maybe they're laughing way more than they were before, that they usually do. You're like, are you all right? Like, everything okay? Like, this is fun and all, but are you okay? But then the person goes, actually, I'm not okay. I'm laughing because if I didn't laugh, I'd be crying. So what happens when you find out that someone is struggling? Because I've said before as well, when you ask someone if they're okay, what's the response?
Yeah, they're like,
I'm
yeah,
fine.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if you ask again, or you say, are you sure? And the person goes, actually, you know what? I'm not okay.
Yep.
So what happens next?
Exactly. So when you get that, like, no, I'm not okay. So that's a question I just want people to ask themselves is, if someone so we talked about a lot of stuff leading up to this. So if someone in your center was struggling tonight, what would they actually do? And like, I'm not talking like people be like, well, our EAP says this, our policy says this, the agency says this. I'm not like not the here's what, like, pull it up in this book, this is what it says. Like, what actually happens? What does that look like? And so I just think that we need to think about, like, the reality versus our programs. And so, like, if someone's like, look, I really need some time off the floor, what does that look like? You know what I mean? Like, if they're like, I just can't today, do you're like, well, sorry, like, you need to come in, like, we can't be short staffed. What is it? Or is it, like, okay, you can take a day. Like, we have these built in ready for you. It just needs to be more, than that. And so I've worked at 5 different peace apps. And one of the peace apps I worked at was so funny. Not funny, we'll say funny. I won't say who it was, but anyway, they, like, when you weren't even allowed to use like sick days. We would, it was awful. And so, like, they literally were like, if you would need to prove it, we're like, prove it. What if I'm throwing up? Like, what do you want me to bring in the bucket? And so that was the type of environment. So if that's the type of environment for those things, how could you ask for help with these things that are a little bit harder to describe?
Yeah, and I'm glad that we're talking about this as well, because I know a lot of people, and us included, I know we've said it before, but I try to add a little bit to it there, which is, it's okay not to be okay, but where do you go from there? Like, what's
Yeah.
next? Because I know a lot of people who have said, I I love that it's out there to say that it's okay not to be okay, because it is, and we have to be um, aware of that and used to it and normalize that. But where does it go from there? Where do we go next? What do we do? What's the next thing? Because there's a door that opens up. You have to
Absolutely.
make the choice to step through it, and
It
then
kind
once you
of,
do decide, where do
yeah.
you go from there?
Yeah, it reminds me of, like, do you remember there was a safe haven law that, and one of the states, I can't remember what state it was, and they ended up opening it up, and they were like, any kid, doesn't need to be just babies, any kid, because they were trying to combat this issue of child abuse and homicide. And then all of a sudden they had this huge wave of people dropped off, and they were like, oh my gosh, we were expecting only 1 or 2. And then they closed the program, and I'm like, man, you should open the program, because obviously all these kids just got dropped off. Like, it was hard, like teenagers, you name it, you guys can Google it. And they closed the program because they weren't ready for it. And so I think, like, it's important. Like, so basically the question that we're asking is, like, great, I love that we've laid that foundation of saying, like, it's okay to not be okay, but then what's next? And so definitely asking yourself what actually happens. This goes beyond policy, and I know you guys know it. So, like, even on other things, you can be like, well, this is the policy, but this is what we actually do. Or, like, this is this, but, like, this is how it actually plays out. This is what it feels like. This is how comfortable people feel. Because if you had looked at my policy handbook, it would say I accrued this many sick leave days for this use. But, like, what did I really feel like I could take them? And different things like that. So we need to ask that. And then, so when it's for those who were in my last class, we did talk about something, and just to kind of give a hook back to that, definitely go back and watch that. But one of the things was the 8-minute safety plan, which was just like a safety net for you. And so you develop a trusted person, and so you have this hook, something for you to, it's your lifesaver, if you will. And it's like, okay, I need 8 minutes, no explanations, no long conversations, no fixing, no nothing. You just need to be able to text this person and say, I need 8 minutes, and that person knows, like, oh, that's what this means. And you have that established in advance. And this is part of that zero suicide proofing that we need to help develop, where it's like, hey, this is this. And so, because it's too hard to drum up those conversations, if those haven't been pre-established in that moment, it's hard to be like, hey, you busy? And then, like, let's say I text you that, and you're like, oh, well, I'm wrapping up this, podcast, or I'm doing this, or I'm finishing this recording. You're in the moment. Can I catch you later? And then, you know what I mean? And then that person might be like, sure. And you not knowing. And so that's why it's important. So it's hard, because then that person also doesn't want to impose. I wouldn't want to impose on you. So I'm like, you know what? No worries. Never mind. You know what I mean? And so we just need to be able to establish, hey, I need 8 minutes. And so that person knows, hey, when I get this, it is important enough. Like, I, can stop this. And then obviously have more than one if you can. Because obviously we know, like, if I'm taking 911 calls, I can't be like, someone's getting this text, I need 8 minutes. I'm like, oh, this is going to be really hard. But yeah, like, I mean, but obviously I can be like, hey, can I take a bathroom break? And then while I'm in the stall, I'll be like, go, like, talk to me. And then I'd come back and be like, I took, had to take my time. You know what I mean? I was going to say something else.
I mean, you said while you're in the stall, so that just...
Yeah, well, no, just like, but use like
I was just gonna say that's dedication. Like, well
but
done.
if you right, but if you have like like if we could just give 8 minutes, to
Mhm.
someone, if you have a code and make something else if you're like, hey this, but 5 minutes is something where people don't really like 8 minutes it has to be something specific, something different. 'Cause
Yeah.
people use five, like, hey, you got 5 minutes, do you got a few minutes? It can't be those. It needs to be different, like a special word. I was gonna say a different thing, but like all this other stuff. But
No, I fully agree that the way you mention it. No, do you have 8 minutes? Because I know, um, a lot of times people will send a message, and I'm in the middle of editing or something, and they'll say, "Do you have a moment for me to call, or can I call, or can I talk to you?" And I'll say, "Is it an emergency?" And a lot of times I treat it almost like when I was in dispatch triaging calls.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like when we are taking those calls, and if we absolutely have to put someone on hold, I would tell the person, I'm going to put you on hold for just one moment. I have to pick up this other line. And when I would answer, I would say, 911, where's your emergency? Is this an emergency? And
yeah,
they would tell me yes or no. And the majority of the time, it was a no.
yeah,
No, this is an emergency. Okay, let me put you on hold really quick, and I'll be right back with you. And it's the same thing. If someone is trying to reach me for something, I'll ask, is this an emergency? And there have been a few times where they've said yes, and I will stop what I'm doing
yep.
to reach that person
Right,
because, man, I life is short, and I don't know what the other person is going through. If I have the moment, I want to take that moment. So you saying,
yeah,
that about the 8 minutes, that's a good way to set it up where, like you said, as soon as they know, it would be, to me, that's almost like the equivalent of some dispatch centers who have, oh, I don't have it on my desk right now, but what those poker chips where instead of saying anything out loud, for peer support,
hmm,
they hand the person the poker chip and they know that that person needs to talk, whether it's right at that moment or, coming up or whichever throughout the shift, they know. So to me, that's almost, the
yeah,
equivalent of that. Do you have eight
absolutely.
minutes?
The pre-established code that removes those barriers. That's what we're looking for. So remember, so those who've been in my Zero Suicide Kits, when you have more barriers to do something, you're less likely to do it. When there's less barriers to do something, you're more likely to do it. So that's what you're doing. And that's kind of the framework that you should have as you're going through these actionable things. When it's like, okay, continuing the conversation on all this stuff, stopping the bleed within, all this other thing, suicide prevention, wellness, you name it. What does that look like? And so have that be your framework of like, hey, we need to remove these barriers. What does that look like? What can we do? And then, so for you guys at an agency, you're like, well, I can't make someone have a person. How do I help support this? I love this idea. So give them time. Sometimes I find that, like, hey, you know what? We've blocked off this hour for your personal wellness. So let's say you have a training day. Instead of just, maybe you weave in here's a 30-minute window for you guys to just dedicate it to you so you guys can help fulfill this. Whether that means you are, emailing your EAP, whether it means you're reaching out, like having time to do some of those to-dos. Because when people are like, okay, do those, but when you get off duty, when you need to go pick up your kids, and then when you need to make dinner, and then when you're like, you know what I mean, and it just doesn't work. And then those are those barriers, and people never end up doing them. And
Right.
so you as an agency, you can still create the space for time. We can't force someone to find like that person for them, but you can help empower it. And so, anyways, all that stuff. And so that kind of leads. Yeah.
Would you consider that like kind of an addition to maybe someone's peer support program that they already have?
Absolutely.
And so, and hold on, I had two things here.
Yeah.
Looking over here at Instagram, our homie JoJo from Latinas of 911 talking about, and she mentioned what I think you were going to say but didn't say. She says, when I'm having a bad day, my coworkers asked me for one safe word
Yeah, I did.
for me to use, and it's bad day.
Yeah. I just don't want mine to be interpreted wrong, where it was like, We're talking about.
We know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So they have something as well.
Exactly.
I don't know that it's exactly, like a program, but it's something normalized already. And I think that's
Yes.
the other thing, is that a
Normalized.
lot of these things need to be normalized, because I
Hmm.
think for a long time it
They
it
weren't.
it wasn't. It was just,
They weren't.
come on, like,
When
let's,
I
you're all
started,
right. Like, let's do this,
yeah, when I started, I literally on the dispatch floor, I heard someone say, "Why don't you sew your pair back on and get back to work?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh!" And like I was like, "Start typing, like stacked busy." And so I was like, "Oh my word!" And so it has came a long way from that, and I'm really glad for that. But we just need to, but we're not done. We're not done. And so it kind of leads us into the next thing that I want to talk about. So a lot of people feel like, like, okay, I want to get this, I want to make sure I get this right. I'm going to, I got to wait though, because I need to get more funding. You know what? I need to wait because I got to get more approval. I got to wait. We got to get more training on this first. We got to wait for, let's build a committee first. We got to get the grant. You know what? Okay. And all this stuff. But meanwhile, like people are continuously suffering, and so I just have, I mean, I just want everyone just to know, like, stop trying to draw the perfect circle and just draw the circle. And so imperfect action, it beats intention or beats perfect intention every time. So imperfect action beats perfect intention because, like, just show up. That's what it is. So when you think of, like, in your life, like when you had that support, it didn't have to be perfect. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
You just want to know. It just means that much to know that someone cares enough to show up,
yeah.
like you're
And
saying.
exactly. And so for those who know, like, my personal story, I talk about a point that basically what stopped my suicide path. And it was a phone call. And I talk about the phone call. And for those who don't know, I got a random phone call from a random coworker who got this feeling to call me. And they had to go to look in the employee handbook. And then they got the phone number off there. And then they called me. But they didn't have anything impressive to say or anything magical. Some people are like, what did they say? They said hello. And they called me. And they even said, they're like, I don't know what to say. They're like, I just had the strongest feeling to give you a call. And that's just like when I can't impress more that we're creating speed bumps, for people's suicide path. It doesn't need to be perfect. We're just throwing out something and that's going to make an impact. And so really just remember that imperfect action beats perfect intention, and just draw the circle. Don't make it have to be a perfect circle. Or sometimes we'll be waiting forever, especially in government.
Well, yeah, exactly. If you're waiting for all that approval and everything else, when it's, as
Funding.
I say, easy enough, but it's, all it is conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we need more conversation, which is always funny to say in the profession that we're in, because all we do
Communication.
is talk. Yeah,
Yeah.
all we do is communications. But looking back over here on Instagram, Latinas of 911 says peer support is by one person caring enough to reach out.
Yeah. And that's what I know, that some people are like, oh, but I want to be able to have this big reach and I want to be able to do this. And we can't really have that much effect. And this. But if you could do for one what you wish you could do for many, you're already on the right track. So
Agreed.
Yeah. I like it. All right. Yeah. And the next thing, so after that, so if we're like, okay, now that we have these things, what else does that mean for us? And so I just want to challenge everyone. So like we kind of talked about earlier when we're like, what are you doing? What does it actually mean? But we need to do something different. So they talk about like, hey, you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? And so if year after year, if you guys are like, well, hey, what did we do? Well, we had our annual wellness training and we put up EAP flyers on the wall. Also some posters on the wall in the break room and other stuff. And it's like, okay, but like our outcomes aren't changing. Like, what is that really like? So I just want to challenge everyone. What are you doing differently this year than you did last year? What are you doing differently? And so if you are part of a wellness committee or a thing, take that back to them. Challenge everybody else with that question. Don't feel like you have to, solve it your own. But also, if there's nobody else to help you, don't feel like you can't. Be like, hey, I'm going to, what can I do? I'm going to talk about something else, something that might help you. But we're going to spitball some ideas. So are you going to host a Zerio Suicide Kit workshop? You can reach out to me. I would do that. I would come to your agency. I really have been loving seeing what Brandy has been doing with the 911 chaplain. Like that, to me, that's different. Like use those things. And you're like, okay, what else is that? And I don't know. Like this is the part where we gotta put in the work. And so for some people, you're like, okay, but all that seems complicated, but what can I do? And so I wanted to talk about the freezer meal part. This is really important to me because I just talked to you about how hey, somebody created a speed bump in my suicide path just themselves, right? No funding, no other things. They didn't call my boss and be like, is this okay? They're like, no, they didn't. They just did it. They didn't ask for permission to get my phone number. You know what I mean? Anyways, all that stuff. Okay. So the freezer meal. So this is a goal for you guys. Anyone can do this. If you have any slight cooking ability or even just purchasing ability, go purchase it. Even if you can't make it, but here's the idea.
People get HelloFresh and all of those other things. Yeah.
Even if so we'll talk about it. But so when you're making a meal at home, make a double batch. If it's something that can be in the freezer, so make a batch for you, but then make an extra batch for a freezer. Then have this freezer meal. Now take this to work, and so you have this freezer meal. And now you can give this away. You can give this away to somebody. And you're going to give it to the person who's going through the divorce that nobody knows about. You're going to give it to someone who just started working a bunch of overtime and you kind of felt like, gosh, that's weird. You're going to give it to the person who is not talking as much as they used to, if they used to talk a lot. Or you're going to give it to the person who's like, man, they seem extra happy and they were really sad. And, because we talked about that feeling of euphoria. Mm-hmm. And so go back to that last lesson if you don't know what the euphoria. But look, a freezer meal doesn't solve people's problems, but it does lighten them. And it's something that you can do. And for people like me, when I got that phone call, I remembered I wasn't alone. And when you hand over that freezer meal, it's a way for you to, it's a way for someone else to feel like they're not forgotten. And it's one less thing that they have to stress about. And that means something. And so, and you guys could replicate this on a big scale. And so for those who don't cook, go to Walmart and buy 2 lasagnas, frozen lasagnas. You can do this. We're talking $15 or less. I don't know what the going rate is for Walmart lasagnas, but it's got to be 50. I'm going to look 15 or less.
I love the idea because you think about communities or additions, subdivisions, however you want to say it, especially way back, villages, when something bad happened, people came together and they did what they could to lighten the load, whether it was yard work, helping them with that, or, bringing meals. There were a lot of things like that helped people just come together and stuff. And I feel like that's what you're, getting at as well with this meal, because it's, especially home cooked meal or even whatever meal, man. I love food. So everybody digs some food, and it's a nice gesture.
Yeah. Well, think of when we talk about okay, this is a straw that broke the camel's back. So basically we're doing that in reverse. So it's okay, what can we do that doesn't do that? What if we can, help make things a little bit easier? Now is this going to give them time to call EAP because they're not busy making dinner while their kids are running around, or different things. Do they have time to reach out to that friend and say, when kids are like, mommy, 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 or daddy, 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 can you, I'm hungry. They have time now to be like, it's in the oven. And then they can text that friend and be like, do you have 8 minutes? Remember, we're removing those barriers, we're removing those obstacles, and we're making it easier for people. And that's what happened before. People had a village And it's been social media, obviously, is great because we're using it now. And it creates a great platform and a far reach. But sometimes in that process, we lost things being personalized and we lost those real, genuine connections that we needed. And that, that support. And we need to replicate some of that more. And so, anyway, so that's really important. And I just think that that piece is something that you can do. I wanted people to be able to walk away from this discussion today and say, what can I do? Because sometimes people, we talked about this a little bit in the other one, stopping the bleed within. People will be like, oh, somebody needs to do something. That's somebody, that's you. You're somebody. And like, we can all do something. Yeah. And so one of the things is when someone doesn't feel so alone, for our next piece about hope, it creates hope. So when now they don't feel so alone, they think, hey, you know what? Like, you just gave them a drop of hope. And so what is hope? What do you guys think that hope is? A lot of people think hope is like optimism. Like, oh, you just got to be positive, which I'm always like, like, it's not about that. You know what I mean? But hope is believing that tomorrow can be different. That's what hope is. And so, like when I got that phone call, I remember it. I was at my mother and sister's grave and I got that phone call and I was just like, man, and that's what it instilled in me was hope. You know what? Like, you know what? And like, maybe tomorrow can be different. And that was just enough of a hook for me. And hope is really important. So the absence of hope, that's when people are taking their lives, when there's no hope left. And so does anybody know the rat experiment? I hate referencing it because it's sad, but we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So have you heard about it? The rat.
I'm not, maybe you and I have talked about it in the past, but go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Okay. Well, so I'm going to read the doctor who did it. So you guys, Dr. Richter. So Richter. So he did this science experiment about the life-saving value of hope. And he used rats. And it was really sad what he did to the rats. So disclaimer. So just like, I'm not in support of that. But for like them, their purposes, they needed to measure this. And so for science, they did do this. And so basically what they did is they dropped rats in tubes of water. And they timed to see how long it would take them to drown. And then these rats, so I'll so let me read how he did it. So anyway, so he wanted to test the concept of hope. He gathered a group of rats and placed them into jars. But this time, instead of them, he didn't leave them like alone. He first measured like what happens when you put rats in a tube of water. So this time he puts them in, and he watches them struggle, but he brings them out of the tube, and he towel dried them, allowed them to recover and rebuild their energy, and then he dropped them back in. And so before, the rats were drowning in like 2 minutes. But this time he had taken them out. So he took them out before the 2 minutes, before they would drown. And he took care of them. And then he put them back in. And then guess how long they swam for? 60 to 80 hours nonstop. And then he let them drown. And that's the sad part. But like, I know, but like.
You could have left that part out.
I'm sorry. But he was doing it because he obviously didn't know how long they would go until they did. But so it's a sad experiment. But what he was trying to capture was that, like, what can we do to create hope? Because with this, once the rats had hope, look how far they could go. Look how much resilience they had. And while I don't like the experiment, because that makes me sad, I don't know why. But if we could somehow, okay, what can we learn from this? And so the absence of hope and how much energy and drive and push that hope gives us, how powerful it is. And so what can we do to replicate it? And so that's kind of our next discussion. So I don't know if anybody in the comments wants to be like, okay, what could we do to replicate hope? What could we do to add hope? And then, as you guys know, so what we just described hope with was, it's not optimism, but it's believing that tomorrow can be different. And so what can we do to help with that? And those are the conversations that we need to be having. So hopefully you guys have lots of homework for your wellness committees yourself, you know, or something else that you have, or even with your friends, your family. Like, what does that look like? And I think that the dinner, that's a easy way to start. That's an easy way to start. But then what else? Keep going. What does that look like? What do you think, Ricardo?
So I was looking at some of the things that we have here as well, and it's, like small acts, doing small things for people that end up turning into really big things. And sometimes some of that is just simply checking in on each other, just sending a hello, hey, how's it going, haven't talked to you in a little while. And then sometimes, and it doesn't even have to be a coworker, this can just be a friend, this would be somebody that family member, whichever, that 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 communication piece was actually something that they needed. Because I've experienced with people where they said, man, you have no idea how much I needed that. Just simply sending I simply sending something to someone saying, hey, you're doing better than you think you are.
Absolutely. And I am a firm believer of, like, when someone pops in your head, like, just because of what happened to me, like, send them a text saying what you just said. Like, hey, like, I believe in you, or I'm thinking of you, or just anything. Like, you really don't know how much hope, even just that, for someone to feel like, man, maybe I'm not alone.
Right.
I'm not forgotten.
Or like what Donna here says, butter squishies.
Yeah.
For those who don't know,
yes,
the butter squishy here. So in the episode that I did with Donna, we're talking about different ways that she continues to heal, and that's almost like kind of a therapeutic thing for her. And it's doing small acts of or performing small acts of kindness in this way. So like a few of us got these awesome butter squishies and stuff, and that also is therapeutic, but it gives those who receive them those gifts like, oh damn, I'm seen and heard. Those are those small acts that end up becoming way bigger than you thought that they were. And they're just it's so important. Just the fact that we recognize each other. Because I've said in the past, like, a lot of people want the federal government to recognize us as first responders and everything, but if we can't recognize each other first, how can we expect them to recognize us? And in the same way, when we're talking about this important topic, that alone, just recognizing, seeing each other, letting someone know that they're or realizing that they're not alone, that is what it's all about. What are some of the other things that you've got?
Yeah, I liked what Donna's making me laugh. She sent one to Ryan. That's funny.
Oh.
And I do like that, Donna, that you said that, you like random people reach out to you and text you out of the blue. And I think that's important, because then the next time you're in that space, then you have that hope. You're like, you know what, this happened last time, and like it can happen this time. And it gives you that resilience and hope that way to hang on. So when
even little compliments.
Yes. Yep.
Dude, absolutely. I was at a fast food restaurant with my daughter. We were in the drive-through, and we pull up to pay, and the lady there had these really cool frames, and I loved the color green that she had. And I said, I love your glasses. I love your frames. My favorite color is green. And like when we first rolled up, before I said that, she looked like it had been a hard day. and I said that, and immediately she was just, oh
yes.
Thank you. And then we pull away, and Lola goes, Dad, that was really nice. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, for one, I did really love those glasses, but two, you never know what someone is going through.
Mm-hmm.
And that little compliment there probably lit her up for the rest of the shift. Who knows? You never know.
Absolutely. Well, and like we've talked, so I've talked before, so if people have been in some of my classes, how we talk about compliments are a really great thing to do because you are actually dropping dopamine in the other person. So what she was experiencing, she gets this sudden dopamine drop. And that's actually something, because people are like, man, what can I do? What can I do? You can actually physically alter another person just by words alone. That's how powerful like we can be. And don't limit yourself thinking like, I'm just one person. What can I do? You know what I mean? And that one doesn't cost $15 at Walmart. That one's for free. You can
Right. Yeah.
you can just do that one. Oh, thank you, Donna. You think of me, yes. Hi, yeah, the Starbucks Dr. Pepper drink. I have got to go there. I haven't asked for it off of their secret menu. Yeah, I was sent that, so thank you. But I just want people. So we have a lot of lessons here. So as we kind of dive into this a little bit further, I just want you guys to know, like, so we're not immune. Sometimes people think that we have this shield that somehow because we work in emergency services, somehow because we're helping everyone else, that we're exempt from the pains of life. And we are not. We don't have the shield. That shield is imaginary. Like that doesn't exist. We face divorces. We face failures. We face child loss. We face bankruptcy. We face domestic violence. All this stuff just like everyone else. And so when we humanize that, when we make it normal, that people are going through these things. And so when we talk about like, okay, how can we help create hope? And we can help by lightening the load, and so whether that's the dinner, but other things, if you're like, man, what else could I do? So reduce the burden. Remember, so if we want to reduce like the obstacles, barriers, things people are going through. So if you have that coworker who's going through that divorce, and they're like, man, I need help with this. I mean, the paperwork is awful, overwhelming. And for someone who's drowning, what a huge task to take on. Can you help with it? Hey, can you help them navigate that leave? Maybe you have somebody who's about to take pregnancy leave and they're juggling being pregnant and like their breaks are already either being used up by peeing all the time or like throwing up or other things. And so you're just trying to help lighten the load. Do you need help with that FMLA paperwork? I've done it a few times. I'd love to help you. Yeah, sure. You know what I mean? What could you do? How could you help them navigate those benefits? Could you help them navigate those resources? Don't just have it up on a wall. What could you do more? So when you guys think like, when it's like, okay, what could I do differently? What could I do? What does that look like? How could I do that? How could I create hope? And then when you help create that bridge for someone, when now they're like, oh, this is overwhelming. I can't do all this. Now, instead of them feeling like closed off in tunnel vision, now they have that, okay, now I have hope. I think that I'm going to be able to get through this. I'm going to be able to have this pregnancy. I'm going to be able to have this birth. It's, what I mean? I'm going to have this, or I can get this divorce, or I can, all those things. Yeah. And Donna says, she goes, we are so not exempt. I think we actually may be more vulnerable to some of the things. I agree with that. So I actually was teaching with the Virtual Academy, and I was talking about 2 sessions. You guys should catch it. And it was about domestic violence, specifically because people, they don't reach out for help. And these things are connected. Like these things are interwoven. So because they don't feel like they can, how can you go from call to call to call, helping people, and then you're like, I can't even help myself. And that pain that you feel, like that doubt, that now it becomes intense because you're like, and then you start thinking yourself negatively when it's wrong. You can help someone. 2 things can be true at the same time. So whether you're helping a suicidal person and then facing these things yourself, doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that you're also human, just like they were. But I think those feelings can be really intense and can actually further the isolation that we have when we feel like we're almost a fraud. Like how can we be helping other people and feeling this way? And it reduces our ability to reach out. So yeah, Donna, I think that is all influences a lot of things. And we could go on a long time about all this stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking of, it was something that I mentioned that someone else had said. And I brought up on one of the panels where, and it kind of goes along with this, where the person said, the thought, the mindset was, I handle emergencies. I'm not supposed to be an emergency. And if we step back just a little bit, talking about the different steps, seeing or identifying what struggle actually looks like, but to go along with things that can help. I mean, what's going on in the agencies? So what I'm getting at here is, are agencies specifically educating staff about suicide and dispatch, or not mental health in general, like specifically
Suicide.
suicide? And if not, like, why do you think, let's just imagine that there are no one's talking about it in the centers. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it is that, or what's stopping the conversation from happening?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, like, so for those in my Zero Suicide Kits workshop, and I wish I could talk about all of it, but with time, like, you're just going to have to schedule a class. But some of the reason why people don't talk about it, because we can't just talk about wellness. And I love that you said the word. Like, sometimes I think that people treat it like Lord Voldemort, but they're like, we can't say it. No, we got to be able to say it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but what happens is people will joke about it on the floor, right? So people will joke about, oh my gosh, that person that killed themselves. Like, do you know what color of eyes they have? And then they say something awful like, they have blue eyes, one blue this way, one blue that way. And you're like, oh my gosh. And these are real jokes that I heard on the floor. And I'm like, what? And people are like, oh, it's dark humor. We're allowed to have that. Yeah. And so, but then when someone is feeling suicidal, if those jokes, like if that's the environment that's happening, then they're not reaching out for help. And then not just the jokes, but then it's how people, what happens after the call when you're like, hey, I just took that suicidal call. Can't believe that person was so selfish, like so selfish. And if people are hanging up their headsets and they're saying that, then the person next to them, they're like, oh, and they shrink a little bit more because they're like, man, I'm selfish. I can't believe I'm having these thoughts, and so you got to protect your floor. And what happens when the headset hangs up? That's the environment of your center. And that's so important to protect. And it's important to instill in those parts, not just be like, here's how we handle calls. This is what we did. We had this many trainings. We had our yearly wellness. We put up the flyers. It goes so much further beyond all that. And your floor conversations, what happens during the downtime, that is reflection on how people can reach out for help. And, not just with that. So like, I talked about in my domestic violence course, like, because this is connected. So when people don't reach out for help, when we have this label of bad bunnies, like, oh, well, this dispatcher, she's not in a relationship, as if like, well, she's just this and she should have known better. So now when she's in this domestic violence situation, which can happen, like, we know this. Obviously, look at my parents. My mom, dispatcher, my dad, police officer, they're not immune either. And so now this person who was given this label of shame, how possibly can they reach out for help? And so we don't want to add more barriers to the problem. And I think that's easy for us to do in public safety and not realize we're doing it. So it's definitely, so I hope you guys know, like, oh man, I'm not saying that you guys are crappy people if you've said those things. Nope. I just hope that you're like, man, I never thought about that before. Because what we need to focus on is like, hey, can I be a better version like now than I was yesterday? And that's all our goals are. Can we do something better today? And it's not about being perfect. It's just about, trying to help other people. And like, so draw a circle, don't make it be a perfect circle, but what can you guys do, for that? So Ryan, he said, everyone is afraid to have those types of conversations. They feel like if it's talked about, then they may end up in one of those or may end up with one on their hands. Yeah. No one takes discussions in mental health seriously. Yeah.
I added a question in there, and I'm because we're going into the wrap up of this, which this has gone really fast.
I know.
Like, we need more than an hour to cover a lot of this stuff. But the question that I put in there is, if you could change one thing about how your agency approaches this topic starting tomorrow,
yes,
what would it be?
What would it be? After
It's
all the
homework.
Yes, homework. And so hopefully you guys got a lot of pieces of like, okay, could I change this? Could I change that? Could I change this? And so some people are like, but I'll get asked this question, but Don, how am I supposed to change a whole center? Like, it's toxic or it's this. And it's like, okay, so remember earlier how I said, do for one what you wish you could do for many? Maybe you're not going to change everybody on your floor. You don't have to, you know what I mean? But could you start a conversation? And so when someone's sitting next to you and they're like, oh my gosh, that person who just killed themselves, they're so selfish. They have kids. How could they do that? And you say, hey, you know what? I get it. And then maybe you talk about a training. Maybe you share my story and be like, hey, have you heard this and different stuff? And if you can help change one person's mind, man, what kind of ripple effect would that have? And so you as one person, it's not being confrontational and be like, oh, you're
it's not
wrong.
calling anybody out. Like,
No,
make
by
that
all
clear.
means.
It's not. It's
By all
not
means,
wanting to go one-on-one.
It's really not. And so I just I read this to the other class before, in the Stopping the Bleed Within, and I just kind of want to include it in as we wrap up. And so I got this message. This was just May 28th, so this is just this last month. It says, hey Don, I saw a comment of yours on the street cops training post. So they made a post, by the way, saying that suicide was selfish. The street cops on social media, they had this huge following. And I was like, oh, dang. And so what can I do as one person? Well, I definitely can't change whoever posted that, probably. And I'm most likely not going to change a lot of their followers. And I'm probably going to get some hate. But what I can do is still make a comment. And what I can do is maybe reach somebody. So I posted a comment, not knowing who it would reach, right? And so on the comment, I said, suicide is not selfish. It's complicated. And I talked a little bit more about it in this comment, in this post, but somebody read it, and this is what they said. Hey Don, I saw your comment on yours on Street Cops training post, and in that comment, I noticed you said suicide's not selfish, it's complicated. My initial instinct was to make a comment about how I feel that it's selfish. I have since deleted that comment because it wasn't helpful, and I wasn't seeking to understand like I should have been. I just listened to a webinar you hosted about suicide prevention, and it helped bring me back to the reality that life is complicated, and I'm in no position to cast judgment, and I have only felt that suicide is selfish because of the pain that I feel every day. You're an inspiration, Don, and I hope you know how lucky we are in public safety to have you as a role model and a leader. That's nice. And so, anyways, like, you're not, and you're also like having those feelings that feels selfish. That's okay too. And that's why you can approach that person and be like, hey, I get it. I can see why you feel like it's selfish, because it's hard when you see somebody leave other people behind. And then strike up those conversations, talk about it. But it was really great to be able to change this person's mind, and it actually helped them heal. Grief has a way of searching for answers. And so that's why some people want to give it a label like, oh, well, this is selfish, because we don't understand it. And we don't have to understand it, but we can be there for people. And so Donna says a few things. We need to approach it not as a place of shame, but from a place of regret. Yeah, that's something I'm learning. I'm glad you're learning that. And thank you for sharing that. And as someone who's has more than been suicidal, I'm not ashamed of who I was and where I once was in my life. I regret that I had nowhere else to turn. Yeah, so it's hard. Life is hard. And I think I'm sorry, Donna, for what you've had to go through. I'm glad that you're here. And I hope that you feel that support, whether it's the butter squishy support or like other support, like from your therapist, or just being able to meet with other people who are going through the same thing. But anyways, lots of things. Gosh, we could literally talk.
I know there's a lot of important information on here that you can write down and take with you tonight. And for those who are watching in this replay as well, this will be available all over social media. Most of social media, except for maybe YouTube, I think they've started deleting the live broadcasts. But I will be uploading this round as well as to add to all the other rounds in the Trenches community. So make sure you join up so that you can watch those whenever you want. And I agree. I think, we also have to change that mindset of listening to understand versus listening to respond. Because I think a lot of times people simply listen to respond and react versus understand.
Yeah, most definitely. And I hope that this was a lot of building upon what we talked about before, not just like in my class, but like in all the other conversations, and the things that Ricardo has helped host, to help in any way that we can, for this issue that we're facing.
Mhm.
But I hope you guys have a lot of homework pieces. We dropped it in throughout this thing. So if you need to rewatch it, bring your pen and paper.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You'll need it.
I will be putting out quotes and graphics and a bunch of stuff to assist with that as well. And before we go off air here, please, Dawn, one, thank you very much for coming on and expanding more and putting out this great information for people to be able, again, to take home with them and have this homework and really think about these things, the things that can be implemented that are very easy things to do.
Yeah.
How can people find out more about you, your classes that you teach, and everything to, get you out there?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, like, for those that know me, so I do work at full-time at a center, but I do a lot of this stuff on the side. You can catch me at my website, donshumwaysolutions.com. You can check out my classes. You can reach out to me as far as all that stuff, just if you need the support and other things. And obviously here, I'm just doing this just because this is such an important need for us to help share awareness, start conversations. And then actually create implementable plans so we can take it to that next level beyond the, like, okay, we established that it's okay to not be okay. What's next? And I'm so glad that you guys were here for the conversation that we can't afford to avoid, right? So all that stuff. Yes. Oh, and some people will be at Nina. Yeah. I'll be at APCO if you guys want to catch me there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Well, again, thank you very, very much for being on. The URL is there in the comments, and let me make sure to throw this over here on Instagram on this side for anyone who wants to get a hold of you and everything. Check you out on social media, all that good stuff. And big shout out to Rapid SOS. Thank you very much for sponsoring the Dispatchers Roundtable. And we've got another one that'll be coming up next month. So we'll have the DRT. We will also have the Public Safety Showcase. So I'll just say it, a shit ton of of continuing education and things for all of you to be able to consume and learn from. And it's all free.
Yep.
And you're able to come back and watch as many times as possible.
Yeah, no, and I just want to thank you, Ricardo, for giving me the opportunity to volunteer, to be able to speak to these issues that are close to my heart. And I just know that they'll help a lot of people, hopefully even people at my own agency that are tuning in. So awesome. I just believe in you guys. So I said, oh yeah, he said a bad word. I didn't say a bad word. I said good words.
What did I say?
You said a swear word.
Oh. I get it now. Shit. Anyway. Thank you all once again. And if you have any comments, questions, you ever want to be a guest on the flagship show, you can hit us up. And that'll be links. That's links with 2eyes.co/IM911. Scroll down just a little bit, and you will see the link on there for the free Trenches community where all of the DRT rounds, that's their home. And also the Public Safety Showcase. It is exclusive there, along with over 200 hours of continuing education from all the Dare to Be Great virtual event sessions. So make sure to join up and get more information. Hit up Dawn to learn more about everything. And we will see you all in the next one, folks. Have a good night.
Good night, guys.
That was round 46 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. Now, after every one of those rounds, like we do those live on social media, and then they live in the Trenches community. So the easiest way to go there to watch every single one of them, if you would like, again, 46 rounds worth of the Dispatchers Roundtable on all kinds of topics that are all dispatch related, as well as including over 200 hours of continuing education for 911 professionals. And that's from the Dare to Be Great virtual events, from Dare to Be Great 1 all the way to 6. And on top of that, there you have got the Public Safety Showcase, several sessions on there for all of you to be able to go back and view and take back to your coworkers, everyone that you know. It's free. It's free to join the community, and it's free to watch those. Again, they are there for you to watch 24/7. Now, the easiest way to do that is to simply go to links. That's links with 2eyes.co/IM911, and you'll find everything there. A big shout out to my friend Dawn for everything that she does, especially for this session, joining me for round 46 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. And again, as I said in the beginning, I just wanted to make sure to add this as part of the podcast so that more and more people could hear it and learn and reach out to her if you need anything, and especially if you need help. 988 is there. Therapy is out there. Your coworkers, friends, family. I don't understand everyone's situation, of course, and I know it probably isn't the easiest thing, but just know that there are friends and family out there that do care about you. And if you haven't heard from someone in a while, please reach out. If someone responds saying, yeah, I'm fine, maybe ask again. Maybe that second or even third ask will be the one that helps that person feel comfortable enough to open up. You never know. It is definitely worth trying to do so. But also knowing that you are not alone. We are all in this together. So again, thank you all for checking this out, for joining me. And at that links with 2eyes.co/IM911, you can find everything there. Email, social media, where to follow, where to hear the latest episodes of Within the Trenches podcast, as well as the Imagine Listening podcast. And then you've also got the link there if you ever want to join me on the podcast to share your dispatch story, whether you are new to dispatch, seasoned, or you are retired. I would love to share your story to literally millions around the world. I have been doing this for over a decade. It is my passion, and I would love to share your story. Also, the link to the Trenches community is there as well. Again, it's all free to join, network. There are tons of people there from all over the place, dispatchers from all over, and those who understand what you are going through and what it is like to take these calls. So again, make sure to join. It is free, and you can also find links for Imagine Listening Volume 1 and Volume 2, as well as a link towards the bottom for any podcast or dispatch merch. Again, that is links with 2eyes.co/IM911. Big shout out to our sponsor and partner, Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading AI company in public safety. Shout out to subscribers. And then you can see this on Facebook, YouTube, as well as X and LinkedIn Live. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one. Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life, through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years, I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But Imagine Listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day,
is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.